Hey, Sunshine Clubbers. My name is Pastor Marshall, and normally I teach at Blossom Valley Sunshine Club. So I want to give a quick shout out to the BVSC kids and leaders. I miss you. We're going to get past this and get to see each other again soon. Well, the last lesson I talked to you about Jacob, and you might remember that Jacob had a lot of conflict with his brother Esau. Well, Jacob would go on to have 12 sons. Yeah, that's a lot of sons. He would go on to have 12 sons, and they did not get along. And that's probably not a surprise, because they probably learned from their dad about how he didn't get along with his brother. Well, one of Jacob's sons was a man by the name of Joseph. And Joseph was Jacob's favorite. He loved him the most. And that's not good. He made him a really fancy coat that he gave to him to show that he loved him more than he loved all the other brothers. And that's not good either. Well, the brothers, they didn't like Joseph. They didn't like him because their dad liked him more. They didn't like him because of his coat. Well, Joseph had a very special gift. At night, when he was asleep, under the moon, at night when he was asleep, he would have dreams, and those dreams sometimes came from God. God spoke to Joseph in his dreams. Well, Joseph told his brothers about one of his dreams that he had. And in his dreams, all of his 12 brothers were all bowing down to him. And that was probably not a good idea either. Even if it was true, it probably wasn't a good idea to tell his brothers that they were going to bow down to him. So they hated him even more. Well, Jacob's dad, Joseph's dad, had been a sheep herder. He took care of sheep. And so he sent these brothers out into the fields to take care of his sheep for him. But Joseph stayed at home. Well, he sent Joseph one day to check on his brothers. And when they saw Joseph coming, they thought to themselves, let's throw him in that pit. There was a big hole in the ground, and they said, let's throw him in the bottom of that pit. And so they threw poor Joseph and his coat of many colors down in the bottom of that pit. And then they decided that they would sell him as a slave. There were some of their enemies were coming, and they sold him as a slave to their enemies. And then their enemies sold him as a slave to a man named Potiphar. Well, Potiphar's wife got Joseph in trouble. Joseph wasn't doing anything wrong, but she got him in trouble. And so the next thing you know, Joseph went to prison. He didn't do anything wrong, but because his boss's wife was mad at him, she sent him to prison. But God was still with him. And when he was in prison, there were some guys that had some dreams. And Joseph was able to interpret those dreams because God helped him. Well, it turned out that those other prisoners were royal prisoners. They worked for the king of Egypt. And so when they got free, they went back to work for the king of Egypt. And the king of Egypt had a dream. Except his dream wasn't a good dream. It was what we call a nightmare. We all hate those kinds of dreams. Well, those men that had been in prison with Joseph, they said, there's a guy in prison named Joseph, and he interprets dreams. And so the king of Egypt sent for Joseph, and he told the king about the dream. And the king was so impressed that he put Joseph in charge of all of Egypt. The dream was about a famine. The dream was about a time that was coming when there wasn't going to be enough food. We call that a famine. And so God warned the king of Egypt through this dream, and Joseph explained it to him. And so the king put Joseph in charge of taking care of the people during this famine. Because of Joseph, millions and millions of people lived. Joseph saved the lives of millions and millions of people who wouldn't have had enough food during the famine. Well, their brothers and dad, they didn't have enough food either. So the brothers had to go to Egypt and get some food. But I better save that story for next time, because that's an important story. I bet that sometimes you have conflicts with your brothers or sisters. I bet sometimes that you fight about things. Hopefully, your parents don't favor one of you over the other. Hopefully, they love you all the same. But even if your parents do favor one of your siblings over the other, you should always treat your siblings, your brothers and sisters, as equals. You should treat them just the same as yourself. And sometimes when we play with our siblings, we want to win. We want to be the best. We want to beat them in video games. We want to beat them in sports. We want to beat them in school. Well, it is okay to compete with our brothers and sisters, but it's not okay to think that we're better than them. So I want to challenge you. The next time you play a game with your brother and sister, the next time you compete in some sort of sport, when it's all over, whoever wins, whoever loses, I want you to tell your brother or your sister, I want you to tell them, I love you. Doesn't matter how this game turned out. I love you because I'm your brother, I'm your sister. But be careful that when you're doing things with your brother and sister that you don't act better than them, because that'll do damage to the relationship. And they're going to be your brother and sister your whole life, and you don't want to do damage to that relationship. Whatever you're playing, say I love you. Well, let's see if you can remember the story, or let's see how good of a job I did telling the story. Does anybody remember how many kids did Jacob have? Now, does anybody remember who his favorite kid was? And what did Jacob give his favorite kid? Does anybody remember that? What did Jacob's brothers do to Joseph when he came to check on them when they were shepherding the sheep? What did his brothers do to Joseph? And then, what did Potiphar's wife do to Joseph? And then, when Joseph was in prison, how did he get made famous? How did Joseph become a prisoner to being famous? He became vice president. And then, as vice president, how did Joseph save millions and millions of lives? Well, I hope that you have a wonderful Sunshine Club, and I sure hope that I get to see all of my friends at Blossom Valley again soon. Bye-bye.